Welcome to sunny side of San Diego.
It's the greatest city in the history of mankind. It's a fact.
Two local San Diegans that look at obstacles as an opportunity for growth.
If you don't fail, you're not even trying.
Michael Carini is the Acrylic Alchemist.
You can call me CEO
of Carini Arts. And Vicente, Vinnie, Enriquez.
No one could do it better.
The team lead of the Enriquez group.
Ride with us.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the sunny side of San Diego. My name is Vinnie. My co-host over here, Michael, he goes by Carini. It's just simple and easy that way. How's it going, Michael?
Good. It's interesting. I was just thinking because I'm looking out the window right now, and we've had a couple rainy days. Some of the few sunny days.
We're having a little bad connection with Michael right now.
San Diego in the past couple days, but right now it's still pretty clear. I thought it was supposed to rain all week, but it seems like the weather's changed. You only had 1 or 2 rainy days.
So we're having a little bit of bad connection.
I generally
delayed a little bit, maybe like 10 seconds.
That's a pretty significant delay.
All right. Should we work through this?
Of course, I think we talk about overcoming obstacles. So, hey, sometimes you have technical difficulties and the show goes on.
All right, sounds good. So what we wanted to talk about today was the idea of what gets you motivated. And so with this long delay, it's trying to figure out, okay, I can see him. Is he about to say something? No, he's not going to say something. All right, then let me push forward. Like things like this. I mean, there's that instinct inside me that's just like, you know what? It's okay. We did an episode. You know, we have stuff in the Rolodex. People can watch the other episodes. Do we need to go forward? But then I remember, you know what? We said we're going to do 2 episodes today. So we're going to do 2 episodes. Even if there's a slight delay, we're going to fight through and push through, because there's people out there that are listening to this and they want to hear basically what keeps us going, because they might need that extra push to keep themselves going or get themselves going. What do you think? Go ahead. What do you think, Michael?
I agree. I'm a big supporter of the idea of doing what you say you're going to do, even when you don't feel like doing it. And sometimes even doing more than you say that you're going to do. Because I think that so many people have lost sight of what it means to give your word or to make a promise or to say something. And so people say a lot of things right now, but they're not really saying anything at all. It's just smoke and mirrors. There's no substance behind it. And I think even if I'm going to be the only one doing it, and I'm not saying that I am, but that's the mentality. Even if I'm the only person that's going to do it, I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. And I'm going to be a person of my word. Because I think that being a man of your word is an important thing. And I think there's a lot of people out there that do the talking and that are, quote, influencers. And they're only showing you a small portion of things. They're not showing you what happens when things don't work according to plan like we just did. I think that there's something really cool, though, and really beautiful about just working through the struggle. And I think that the majority of people do struggle and are looking for support and are looking for inspiration. And I think that what they're going to relate to is somebody that really is working through it. That's not just like, hey, I'm wonderful, I'm gold, I'm great. I think it's somebody that is showing them, hey, I fall too, I fail too, because they may look at somebody else and be like, hey, they're really successful. But if they're not seeing what it took to get there, seeing all the stumbles, all the fails, they're not going to be able to connect with that. And they're not going to be able to feel that they can have hope. But I think that by seeing somebody that fails and struggles, but then moves forward, that gives them that inspiration and that motivation.
I believe there's a small demographic that does. They want to see basically that person that looks like they never fail, even though it's BS. I mean, everyone fails, everyone struggles, everyone pushes through. Yes, some people are struggling at a higher level. Some people are having smaller struggles. Some people got their struggles, a lot of their struggles out earlier, right? But as soon as, especially, man, I mean, I've had podcast interviews, right, where I'm talking to someone and I'm trying to dive deeper, and they're telling me, oh, this came easy, this came easy, this came easy. I'm like, oh my God, you're just speaking a bunch of BS. I mean, you're saying that everything came easy, you know, and you just start knowing that they're just basically giving you BS. I mean, no one's perfect. And when someone portrays themselves as being perfect, right, there's something that they're hiding. And that's one thing that gets under my skin all the time, because it can be deflating, right? If you don't know, if you're new to industry, new to a business, new to a profession, new to whatever, and you see you see someone that's basically portraying themselves being perfect, you start weighing your insides against their outsides. And you're like, oh my gosh, why is it so easy for them, and why is it so hard for me, right? And that's the thing, because you're almost like drowning, and you're trying to find, you know, a life vest. You're trying to find basically a preserver, something to keep you going, and all you see is basically these people that are saying, oh, it's so easy for me, it's so easy. But then as soon as you can see that one person saying, hey, you know what, I've been in your struggle, I've been in your boat, it was hard for me, but I found this way to get through it. It makes everything feel okay. I can get through this just like they got through this.
I agree. And I almost sometimes run into the opposite end of the spectrum, where me personally, it seems like everything comes difficult for me. And I don't know if that's something that's just built in my mind. I think that part of it is part of my health conditions and things that I have that are pre-existing. But I do find that when I start to shift my behaviors and the patterns that then sort of build to the rituals, that I can at least minimize that, or start to shift to put myself on a certain path. So even if we have a certain type of predisposition or a path that we have been set on, it is possible to start deviating in a different direction. But it does require you to have a lot of focus and dedication, because it's so easy to get thrown off. And for me personally, I can get thrown off by a single person, a single act. And so I have to sort of build things up to a point where I'm so focused that that doesn't shift me off course. And it's a tough thing, but I find that that's what I need to do in order to be able to move that way. But I'm not somebody that can always be happy, that can always be positive. I deal with a lot of pains and just the battles with my mind. If it's not a battle with my body, it's a battle with my mind. It's always something, either the body or the mind, or both.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I mean, I think a lot of us have those insecurities, and we fight through those insecurities. It could be insecurity of how you look, be insecurity about basically that you're going to lose what you have, be insecurities about a lot of things. And we want to feel that it's going to be okay, that it's going to be okay feeling. I mean, it can come through love. It can come through, I mean, mostly I think love, caring, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily be that sexual love, but it could be like a relationship love, like a friend just reaching out to you and saying, hey, are you okay? I mean, how good does that feel when you're in a bad moment and someone just reaches out to you, just say, hey, you know what? I just wanted to reach out to you just to make sure that you're doing all right. It feels good. I mean, it's like, wow. I mean, that person actually thought about me. They cared about me. I'm not alone.
It does most of the time. I've hit points, like bottoms, where I've then just been at such a point that to have that piled on top of it, it's like, no, I don't want anybody. But part of that comes from feeling like you're on the bottom for so long, where you're at the point of giving up. And then I think when you hit that point, I know that earlier on in life, I would always hope that somebody else would do that somebody else would pick me up, that somebody would help me out. I would see other people being helped or picked up, and I would think, well, somebody's helping them, so somebody's going to come for me too, because things are equal. Things are going to be equal. And nobody came oftentimes. And so what I learned over time was that I might have to be the person that picks myself up. And beyond that, if you take it a step further, not only finding a way to pick yourself up in those times, but then maybe being the person that picks yourself up. And then even though nobody ever came for you, you still try to pick somebody else up. So carrying your own weight plus somebody else's, because you don't want them to have to feel the way that you felt at this point.
Yeah. And I mean, those moments where you don't want anyone to be there, and you have to almost come out of those bad moments alone a little bit. And then once you come, I think it's like you come out of this bad moment, and then you kind of, that little extra push to get you above that next bar is usually from other people. I mean, I've talked about this podcast where I was in a really bad moment. Now it's been a while. It's been like probably like a year and a half, but I was in a really bad moment. And I was very systematic in what I was thinking and what I was doing. Yet I was also, I probably got went a little overboard. I was drinking for like 10 days. I was just didn't know what to do, kind of thing. And I started building a game plan to get out of that moment. And luckily everything worked out for the positive. Yet I was in a really bad spot, and it took me to help me in my own self internally get out of that spot. Yet when I needed it, I was around loved ones and people near me, and the emotional stuff that I was holding back, right? Because mentally I was able to get out of it. Yet the emotional stuff I was holding back, it only came out when someone was there that loved me and cared for me. And it was surprising for me, where I was able to just kind of release those tears, right? And I don't know if I would have been able to release those tears with that love, with those loved ones, unless I kind of did some internal work and kind of get a game plan of how I'm going to get out of this really bad spot.
Yeah, it's definitely relatable. I had somewhat of a roller coaster going on from the start of the pandemic, and then November it was on a definite down, and then my grandfather passed, and that would be something that people could say, well, okay, that makes sense. Like, why not go even further into that? But I use that as the catalyst to kind of turn things around. And so since early November, I've been working my way back. But I'm such an extremist that in the effort to pull myself back, I was going so hard with everything, with my studio work, with the art, with the fitness, doing 2-a-days. And up to a couple weeks ago, I reached a point where I was completely burned out. Like, my body was just not functioning. It was the worst I'd ever felt. And about a week ago, for the first time in my life, I had a point where I was at the gym and I thought, I don't want to be here. And I don't remember the last time I felt that way. So I gave myself a good 3 days, and I was supposed to take like a week and a half, but I gave myself 3 days, and then I went for a run in the rain on Monday, and it was so cathartic, almost this type of baptismal feeling. Now I finished a big marquee project I was working on too, so my mind felt like it could relax a little bit, because I was at the point that when I would try to have regular conversations, simple conversations, I was struggling with my words. I would say a word and the word would come out incorrectly. I was bumping into things, which just showed that my cognition and everything was just so askew. And I felt like I was just broken down. I was happy, aside from the fact that I felt terrible. And a few days, a run in the rain, and listening to some YouTube videos in the morning, getting back to that, and I'm feeling a little bit better. So I'm kind of trying to get back into the rhythm of things right now, after giving it a few days. But I think that even listening to the videos, putting those affirmations, putting those thoughts in my head, paying attention to what I'm listening to, what's coming in, what I'm filtering, it makes a big difference. You don't think that it does, and you start to slowly slip and fall down a slippery slope. But wow, it makes a huge difference, the thoughts that you put in your head and the things that you listen to.
Yeah, I mean, one of my sisters, she does affirmations with her little kids every morning. And I mean, it's just like, little kids, you need that kind of affirmation, say you're positive. It's interesting what kind of just slips into your subconscious. Like, you tell yourself that you're heavy. Oh, I'm just fat, or I'm just stupid, or whatever it might be, right? And you tell yourself over time, you start believing it. You start believing those, like, they become negative, almost affirmation, I guess, right? So, have the positive mindset. Do you remember that Saturday Night Live skit back in the day where the guy would look in the mirror and he'd go, I'm good enough. People like me, or something like that. I'm good enough. I'm loved. People like me. I forgot
It sounds so familiar. I can't picture it, but it sounds very familiar.
Yeah. So I mean, I was like, oh, this is hilarious. And then you start thinking about it, and you're like, oh my gosh, he was just doing affirmations. He was just telling himself why he's great. I mean, he was doing stuff before I even thought it was like good. Like, I mean, it took me a long time to actually truly understand how much the words you say really affect us. I mean, if we say something and we start believing it over time. So it's powerful. I mean, make sure you're using the right words when you're saying things.
And if you're not used to that, it's not only hard to start that, but it's hard to continue it, because I've started that process and then I find that I'll have these periods where I slip just a tiny bit and then I start slipping more and more and more. And then over time, it's like we talk about, baby steps make a huge difference. But just as baby steps make a huge difference in terms of moving towards a goal and in a positive direction, you can also be making baby steps in the wrong direction that will be compounded and put you in a very detrimental place over time if you're not careful. And I've fallen into that trap time and time again. And right now I'm trying to openly and honestly look at where I am and what's happening. And I'm realizing that that might have been something that I failed with and that I struggled with. I'm still going to work to correct it, but yeah, maybe I fell pretty far.
Well, for people listening right now, I mean, what do you struggle with? What's your affirmation? I mean, how do you keep yourself motivated? What drives you? I mean, go towards that pleasure. Go towards that positive and push through. If you can't get there, then look back at where you don't want to be and go away from that negative.
And I think the important lesson from the way that this podcast serendipitously rolled out was that it doesn't have to be perfect, that the journey is not perfect. And anybody that tells you about a perfect journey is telling you a fairy tale. And fairy tales can be a beautiful thing. They can teach great lessons, but they're not always relatable.
Yeah. So don't worry if you're in a bad spot right now. I mean, realize you're not alone. I mean, we've both been there. A lot of people have been in those situations. I mean, on the Road to Growth podcast, I've interviewed over like 130 people, and at least 120 of them told me the truth, that they were in similar moments and really bad moments. Maybe 10 of them kind of lied and fibbed a little bit, but for the majority of people, right, they've had that struggle, and they're going to tell you they've had that struggle. So don't worry, you're not alone. Things are going to get better. Just think positive and be ready for the journey. Thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe, please share, and we'd love to hear any kind of feedback that you'd be willing to offer.